Hey, welcome to Charnay by Grace. It's been a minute, and I had a little time before a client, and I wanted to just share a word with you today. I want to encourage you that God is for you, Jesus is with you, the Holy Spirit is in you, and all of heaven's angels are on your side. And that's just how I feel about it. So, Proverbs 13:12 says, "A hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life." Well, what does that mean exactly? Because so many times in life, hope is deferred. So many times in life, we have a desire for something that it feels like it's never going to come to fruition. We don't have people to believe in the hope with us, so it's discouraging. And sometimes we just want to quit in the midst of the whole thing. And so the scripture is set up to give us the kind of insulation in our heart and in our mind to keep us focused on the goal, to not faint in well-doing, to not give up in the midst of a crisis or in the midst of a delay or what looks like a denial or a deferment. And a lot of us know about deferment. We enjoy deferments when it comes to our house notes, our student loans, but there's nothing like having a real heart's desire and it being deferred. Even if it's just a phone call from that special someone, or if it's just that moment where you truly, truly need something in your life to happen. You need something to be paid. You need a medical breakthrough, something specific. And it really, really hurts. So what do? What does the word say about it? Well, I love the Proverbs. I do. I don't think that you can always read them in isolation, but there are times where I just take a single proverb and I'm able to sift through some things in my life and figure out how to maintain the course. And if there's not a path, then I have to figure out how to create one if that's where God is calling me. So how do I not change my hope? In other words, if God's put a hope in my heart, how do I sustain? How do I keep that note sustaining, right? Until it comes to pass, even when it looks like it's not going to. So Proverbs 13:12, it says, "A hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life." So number one, let's deal with a hope deferred. That sucks. Nobody likes a delay in what they earnestly want, especially when they've been super patient about it. But a deferment is not a denial. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember when I applied to college, Fisk was the first college that I applied to. And it was the last college that I heard from. I assumed that at that point I was going to have to stay in Kentucky, which felt like a death sentence. I hate to be dramatic about it, but I was really dramatic at 18, 17 at the time. And I just could not imagine going to school in Kentucky. I mean, most of my friends did. In fact, all of my friends did, with the exception of maybe two. And they were super successful. But I knew it wasn't for me. I knew that I needed to get out to have the kind of success, the life that I wanted. And I prayed that entire year for a breakthrough. And it didn't come until June. And I almost gave up. I went ahead and settled into a state school in the state of Kentucky, and I was accepted. I had a roommate, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to thug it out. Back then we didn't say thug it out, but that's what I decided. And I was visiting family in Georgia, and my mom called and said, "You're going to Fisk." And that was my story, and it was a lovely story. And so I'm just grateful that deferred didn't mean denied. It could have. But I think there was something that I wrote, something that someone heard, or maybe my application just got shuffled around. Maybe they accepted me long ago and it just, the letter just didn't get sent in time. I don't know what happened, and I don't care, because it's Black History now. And just because I was deferred, just because it was the first one I applied to and the last one that I heard from all the way from the fall to the summer, didn't mean that I was denied. And I want to encourage you, hope deferred does not mean denied. It doesn't mean that that hope won't come to pass. And maybe it won't come to pass in the way that you think. There were a lot of things that happened while I was in college that I assumed that I would have money, but I didn't. I assumed that I would be in long-term relationships, but they ended. I assumed that I would get into the grad school that I wanted to, and I didn't. So There were a lot of deferrals that happened during that time, and I did get denied. But those denials were not final because they turned into something that I understand now was just a deferment. And so the entire experience was like that. And it was excruciating. I was afraid, but I knew what God told me. And when you know what God has told you, stick to your guns. Go with what your heart says. Fulfill the law of Christ by loving on others and continue to stay the course. And if there's not a path that you see fit to get through at that point with that hope, create one. Okay, so that's number one. Hope deferred is not a denial. And I'm an example. I'm a FIS graduate. I was deferred but not denied. Number two, heart sickness. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. What does that mean? Maybe not a physical sickness, but you do feel it, right? Especially when your heart has been broken, when that hope has just made you sick, like it's never going to come to pass, and it's starting to manifest in your body. You actually just give up a little bit because you become sick about it. People say that sometimes love makes them sick, which is crazy, right? People say love shouldn't hurt, but we know better. We know sometimes people who love us hurt us. We also know that letting our children or our parents can make heart sickness. And it could be because of something that we want to come to pass, a breakthrough in the relationship or a breakthrough on the job. You know, I've been in this occupation for so long. I've been on this job and I'm doing the best that I can. But guess what? It's not working. And I'm tired and it's making me ill. So heart deferment can cause heart sickness. But it doesn't mean that the heart stops, right? Because if the heart stops, you're dead. And so you'd rather be sick than dead. And we don't think about that. I would actually prefer illness over death, right? Something to swallow, something to think about. So a hope deferred makes a heart sick, but it doesn't stop it. So I got really sick when I got rejected from Vanderbilt. I wanted to go to Vanderbilt for graduate school. I felt like my pastor had gone there. It was the only divinity school that I had applied to at that point. And I just figured everything in life had worked out for me. Pretty much everything I wanted to do, I got to do. I trusted God. They denied me big. I'm talking about in the face. You're not coming. We don't have to tell you why. Sorry. Good luck. I didn't have a plan B. I knew I didn't want to go back home. I worked really hard to get out, so I didn't want to go back. And then what am I going to do in Nashville when I don't have a school to go to? Get a job? No, I wanted to go to divinity school. I knew that. I knew that by my sophomore year that was my track, that ministry and helping people and through music and all the things that I was doing and I was majoring in college. But specifically, I knew that God had called me to that. Well, it just so happened that I was in the Ebony magazine, and under my picture, it said that upon graduation, I would like to go to divinity school. And there was another sister, a sister mentor, who was also a Fiskite, who was also a professor at Howard Divinity School, who was also from Louisville, Kentucky. And we just had a lot in common. And she wrote me a letter back in the early 2000s, late 90s, where people were still writing letters. I love to write letters. I send cards all the time. But anyway, and she said, listen, I saw your picture. I want you to know that if you want to go to Howard, if you want to come here, I'll help you get in wherever you want to go. And that was my story. I didn't apply. Howard chose me. And so it did make me sick. I mean, I was laying on my dorm floor naked, prostrate. Yes, I really was. That literally happened. I still can't believe I did that. But I needed a breakthrough from God. I fasted. I cried a lot. I was devastated. I was embarrassed because when you're a dreamer like me and you trust God and your word is out there and you know other people are going to be asking you, did you get in? Did you get in? And you get rejected. You know, it's one thing they say you've been denied, but rejection letter. Okay. That's something different. It hits home a little bit different. But I ended up getting into a school that I didn't even court, that I didn't intend. never visited, never really had a thought. I known some people that had gone to Howard, but I didn't think it was for me. And so many of the women that I admire, Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen, and just so many personalities that eventually became my Howard Bison sisters. Go figure. So, number one, hope deferred. It's not denial. Number two, heart sick doesn't mean your heart stopped. It doesn't mean my dream stopped. It just means that I was a little sick. And so number three is desire comes. Desire comes, but sometimes it's not full, but it's in progress. So after 12 years of trying to figure out how to make it through ministry, I decided to shift paths. It was challenging, but a desire had come to serve, and I was going to do it by whatever means. So temporarily, I left ministry. Not completely. I still was preaching and teaching and writing and all those things, but I left it as a profession so that I could pursue working with children and adults in education. I felt like I'd hit a ceiling, and I had a desire to keep going, but it wasn't full. So did I have fulfillment in education? Do I have fulfillment in education? Absolutely. But it wasn't full, because I believed God when he told me what my calling was. It's to preach and teach and sing and share his gospel, to share the love of Christ, to meet people where they are, to continue the work that was put before me by my ancestors, my uncles, my aunts that have been preaching the word for generations. It's in me. It's who I am. It's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So the desire did come through that. I did get some desire, but it just wasn't full. And Capella gave me that opportunity. So yes, Fisk, yes, Howard, but Capella was different. Capella isn't a predominantly it's an online institution, predominantly white. The things that I was able to do with Capella made me, shaped me into, sharpened me into the professional that I really wanted to be. It helped me to understand what research was really like. It helped me to understand how to really developmentally understand children that I was working with, whether it was in school or in ministry or whatever capacity. I needed more. I just did. And the education that I had before was great. I take nothing for my Black college education, but Capella gave me something different. It helped my desire to come, but it wasn't full. And I knew that. And so just because the desire comes and it's not full doesn't mean that the tree of life is not on its way. So number 4, tree of life. A hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it's a tree of life. Fruition. That's what we're looking for. It takes a really long time for a tree to grow. I mean, into the tree it's going to become. You can plant a tree and you watch it grow, but the trunk that it's going to have, we may not even be alive when that happens. Isn't that something? Trees outlive us all the time. When we think about the trees in our life, when we think about a tree of life, we think about full capacity. We think about coming full circle, being filled, right? And there's nothing like being filled with the Holy Spirit. And I'm 42. I've lived a while, but I think I might live more than I've been alive, which means that my grandmother's 93. So even if I just lived to 85, I would have surpassed the age I am now, doubled it plus some, right? So I have a life to lead. And I have a life to live. And there is a tree of life for me. And there's a tree of life for you. God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above what you can think of, ever hope for, or develop within your imagination. I know, because I am a very imaginative person. I make stuff up in my head all the time. And God's will is always better, brighter, bigger, more imaginative, more colorful, more extreme than anything that I could ever do. So fruition for me, my tree of life, started with Liberty. Liberty University provided me with a doctorate, finally. something I've been trying to obtain a very long time. Since I was probably about 24, 25, I realized that that's something that I wanted. I cannot tell you how many programs I've actually applied and been accepted to. A PhD program. I have been in a THD program, got accepted to THD, THM, all these terminal degrees. And it's only been a year since I graduated with my doctorate. That was my fruition. Why so late, huh? I have plenty of friends and family who have done this much earlier in life. They've been working in their field a lot longer. They're invested. I'm new, right? Even at 42, I'm new. And so, well, what does that mean? For me, it meant the tree of life means things are finally coming to fruition now. You don't want them to come through too early because you'll end up like me. I wanted something so bad. I wanted to get a doctorate. I wanted to be an expert in my field: education, ministry, counseling, therapy, all of it, especially when it comes to the next generation. And it took a long time for me to get here. But once I got here, I realized I was short-sighted. I didn't have enough goals. When I finished, what are you going to do now? So I opened up a practice. And here I am, Charnay by Grace, full therapy practice. So I'm literally now making goals, meeting them, making goals, meeting them. Where before I had these long-term goals, and I realized that even though it's a blessing to be able to still create, I wished that my goals went a little further. And I realize now that I'm glad it didn't come any sooner. I'm glad that I had time to unpack so much of my life. I was able to do so many things. I have 4 beautiful babies that I never would have given birth to if I had taken my life in a different direction. I wanted to join the Peace Corps at one point. So many different things could have happened. But the things I now have, I prayed for. And I realized why it took that time. I would not have wanted it 1 second earlier. You know why? I just would have been out of goals. I was short-sighted. Now I have galactical goals. I'm literally creating things that are happening in real time because I fulfilled all those things that I desired. But Liberty gave me something new. It gave me a fresh start to reinvent myself over and over again every day and give people a better version of me every single hour that I live. So I'm super grateful for the experience because a hope deferred makes the heart sick. But when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. It is fruition. It is fulfillment. You don't want it too early. You don't. Even healing in our body cannot happen instantly. We wonder why. I want to feel better right now, God, right now. But it'd be too abrupt. Our system couldn't handle it. And the truth is, I couldn't handle it. I didn't have another goal. But I'm making them now. And I realized that I will never put that kind of pressure on God for anything. You know why? Because I'm only putting pressure on myself when I do that. He has something special for you. You have greatness in you. You are destined to do something very specific. So I got to get back to my clients, but I want you to know that I love you and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about that. A hope deferred does make the heart sick. It can make the heart sick. But when the desire comes, it may not come full yet, but when it does, it will be a tree of life. And those trees outlive us. Our passions, our purpose, our calling, it outlives us. So I think we better start planning for the eternity because there are things that will spin legacies with our name on it that you cannot even imagine. No singing today, just Charnay by Grace. I pray that you have a good day. And as always, grow in grace.